All right, thank you all for joining. Public Works Commission, August 26, 2026 at 1:36 p.m. We're going to begin with our roll call. Please announce where you are.
So you are
and
on
if
it.
there's
So
anyone
you are.
in
Pat
the
Borge,
room with you.
unverified.
Pat, this is just for the commission members at this time. Thank you. Hold off. I'll announce them for testifiers. So we'll start off with Laureen.
Hi, Lorraine Canada. I'm by myself in my home office in Kihei.
Thank you. Bria Lynn.
Yeah, Brylan Onodera. I'm in a telephone booth by myself. I'm Haleakala Senate.
Thank you. Matt.
Matt Schrader. I'm alone in my home in Kihei.
Thank you. And Jeremy.
Hello, Jeremy, from Lahaina.
And Noah in his office in Kihei, alone. Okay, at this time, we'll ask testifiers to identify themselves. So we have Pat, I see. Can you identify yourself? And I'll be open to getting the testimony.
Oh, Chair, this is Mike Hopper. You can take testimony, I guess, at the beginning of the meeting for all the items if you'd like, but normally we ask for each item if there are any testifiers. So you don't have to have everybody on the line identify themselves unless you're going to start taking the testimony, and then they can do that when they're about to testify.
Okay, that's great. Let's move into acceptance of meeting minutes then, and we'll go back when we're ready for the testimony. Apologies for that. So does anyone have any comments on the meeting minutes from last meeting?
And Chair, you would also ask if there's any testimony on the meeting minutes, but there may not be, but you have to check each item as it comes up.
Okay. Is there any testimony on the meeting minutes? If not, I'll take a motion to administratively accept.
I make a motion to accept the meeting minutes.
Okay, motion from Jeremy to accept. Can I get a second? Second from Laureen. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, thank
Aye.
you. Okay, so we'll move into new business then. So our first item is the nomination and election of a new vice chair. Have we had time to think about this? If anyone wanted to do this?
And Chair, we would have to ask for testimony on new vice chair also if we wanted
Okay.
to.
Is there any testimony on the nomination of a new vice chair? Seeing none for testimony? Okay. Commission members, who wants to be vice chair? If you're vice chair, you probably won't be full chair when my term expires. Because you'll already be the vice chair.
There can be nominations too, Chair Wellen.
Yes, any nominations? I don't want to push someone to do it if they don't want to do it. But we would need to have a vice chair eventually if there's a meeting I can't attend, so someone could run the meeting. It's tough because we don't have the full commission either. Yes, Jeremy. Sorry, what was that?
A little hard to hear.
I have no idea what I would be doing, but I'll do it.
Okay. Jeremy has nominated himself. Sounds like we'll take a vote on that at this point.
Chair,
All in favor?
Chair, you can see if there's any other nominations at this point. Sounds like there's not, but just confirm and then close the
Okay.
nominations and take a vote.
Okay, if there is any other nominations, I'll take them at this time. Seeing none, we can take a vote. All in favor? For Jeremy as vice chair? All right.
Paul is Jeremy.
All right, thank you, Jeremy. Okay. Next agenda item is the County of Maui Public Works Commission member training. Is there any testimony related to this?
Chair, this is Michael Hopper. I don't know if you guys would potentially consider this. You would have the authority to move the agenda item 3 up ahead of 2 if there's a lot of testifiers who might not want to be here through the member training. I know I have a presentation, and I think Deputy Director does as well. It's at your purview. You can move that up if you want, but just a suggestion that that's a potential option to move 3 ahead of 2 if there's no objections from the members. If you ask for that, then you could take that first if you would like.
Does that sound good to the commission so we can get through the testifiers? Yep. Okay, let's do that. So let's move on to facility naming application to rename Kula Park to Gladys Baisa Park.
So,
And
Chair,
We'll take testimony. We'll ask for testimony and for testifiers to identify themselves on this agenda item.
yes, Chair. So we have two testifiers in person here at our office, as well as just wanted to confirm everyone did receive the numerous written testimonies provided.
Yes.
So, and we also had Pat Borge online sign up to testify. So, those are the 3 testifiers we have at this point.
Okay, are there any others that need to get on the list? If not, let's start with Pat Borg online.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. My name is Pat Borge. I live up in Makawao. This is not about Gladys Baisa. So she was a good friend of mine. For me, this is a real issue where, so how many council people are we going to name parks after and baseball parks? And, I don't think we have enough to name all these council people, but they're all great people. But for me, on this one here is so political, since Sugimura is running for mayor. This shouldn't be brought up by her, maybe somebody else, but I think this should be deferred until the election is over. To me, there's a little political connection here, and Hawaii is starting to get famous about corruption and all of this, and this is one of the steps that I see. I know politics a long time. I lived in Maui all my life. I've been to a lot of mayors, a lot of, all kind of stuff. So to me, the best bet for this is for you guys to defer this issue and wait till the election is over and then come back and discuss it. But even this, I think the whole island, we vote community open, right? We will vote for every district. So I think this should belong before the council to decide what we should be naming and what not the public works. That's my comment for today. Thank you for letting me speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat. Is there any questions at this time? Oh, and I've recognized Lokelani was able to join us.
Aloha.
Any question for the testifier?
Well, Chair, I do have a question for the testifier.
Yes, Jeremy.
Yeah, I'll say, Pat, my name's Jeremy. I'm from Lahaina. Would this be better served if Makawao or upcountry community voted on this rather than county council? I mean, I don't know how it applies. Like, Public Works has the authority, but I feel like because this is on Kula or upcountry issue, that the upcountry residents should be voting on this. So
Yeah.
I just kind of wanted to get your opinion on that.
I understand that. I'm from Makawao, but the thing is, for me, like you're saying, going before the council is that we vote island-wide. But if you're going to vote for one park in Kula, then what's going to happen in Makawao? What's going to happen in Lahaina? How many more? It's a domino effect, I think, that before we know it, this public parks belong to the public, and it belongs to the county of Maui and the people of Maui. And what happens in Lahaina affects me up Makawao, even though I live Makawao. We all live on an island, You know, it affects everybody. What goes on in Kula affects me. What goes on in Paia, it affects me. We live on an island, and so sometimes you people forget that we live on an island and we're in an island community. So I feel that everybody should get involved and vote. You know what I'm saying? Even when you build Makena Big Beach, we all should get involved in it because I go to the beach. You know what I mean? It's not just Kihei people going to vote on that issue. I mean, that's just my opinion, guy. I understand where you're coming from, but I just want to remind people that we live on an island and we're all together in this, whether it's in Lahaina. You know, like I always tell people, when you go to the mainland, you don't tell people you're from Lahaina, you tell them you're from Maui. You know what I mean? So, what, we all in this together, right? That's my take. Thanks. Thanks, you guys. I understand where you're coming from, brother. I understand.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any other
Yeah.
clarifying questions?
I just wanted to make a statement.
Go
So
ahead, Paul.
the renaming of parks and facilities comes to the Public Works Commission as well as the Cultural Resources Commission before being proposed to council for final approval.
Mm.
So in the county code, that's how the process goes. So it's not just Public Works, it's not just the CRC. It is then the full council as well.
Thank you very much for that. Thank you.
Okay, next testifier, Paul, I guess that's with you in the room.
Yeah. So the next testifier is in the room with us here, Mr. Dick Mayer.
He signed up first.
Oh, Sherman. Sorry. Yeah. So Mr. Sherman Baisa.
Ready?
Mhm.
Hello again. Sherman Baisa. I'm the son of Gladys Baisa.
Mm.
And to, I guess, shed some light on this whole thing, I mean, to make things, I guess, straight, I was approached by Councilmember Sugimura before the elections that she was anticipating doing something to paralyze my mom's name. Being that nothing was happening, or everybody out there know my mom. My mom did a lot for this island. Not just as a council member, not just MEO. My mom was a community activity person. She did everything with the county, everything with the community, everything with the church. I mean, I grew up in her shadow. And participating in community activity was what we did. So when Yukile approached me about that proposal with naming the park for my mom, I said, wow, that'll be nice. Everybody that knows my mom would say, no, she didn't want it. Because she'd probably be my mom was a person that didn't want to be in the limelight. She just wanted to get things done. She liked to help the community. So as we were asked about this whole proposal, I said, well, if there's no name on it and you guys would like to memorialize my mom in that way, I think that would be great. That's why me and my family are here to support this in any way possible. Speaking to my dad, he said, well, if they'd like to do it for mom, we'd appreciate it. But we'd like for the name to be appropriately given, or for the recognition to be appropriately given. And we don't want to hurt anybody's feelings or make anybody uneasy about it. But we as the family are in support of this measure. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you for the testimony to the commission. Is there any clarifying questions for the testifier? Okay, seeing none. Next testimony, please, Paul.
And that would be in person, Mr. Dick Meyer.
Thank you very much. Dick Mayer. I want to give some history to this park, so you commissioners will have some background. before they rename it. I was the one who got the land identified. I went to the state legislature, got the money to buy the land. Then I went to the county. We got the money to build the park and put in the facilities, the ball fields, etc. I worked with the landscape architect designing the park. I have here all the plans in front of me here that we use to design the park. I have quite a long file that's way beyond the time I have to show it all, but I'll be glad to answer questions. I can show it if you want me to. I worked for about 7 or 8 years on this project. And finally, in 1994, we got the park finished. We had a dedication. My own children were there giving a talk that day as they were representing the school, Kula School. And the whole idea was to have a park adjacent to Kula School. Up until then, children in Kula did not have a park to play in. They had to go about 4 or 5 miles for most children, all the way out to Keokea to play on a substandard field. It was a slope field. It was not the best thing, and it was quite distant. And so many children never really got access to a ball field. By locating it adjacent to the school, it doubled the size of the school. The land that the school is on, Kula School, is county land, even though it's a state school. And now this makes the park adjacent to it. Eventually, we also got the fire station put at the top of that park. All that was, worked on, and I had a lot to do with it. What I'm saying today is not anything against Gladys Baisa, who I consider a marvelous person, and I'll go into that in a minute. I work closely with her on many, many projects. She came to the Kula Community Association meetings on a regular basis. I was at times the president of the association, and we work closely together on many issues. She's a marvelous woman. In fact, I would say naming the park after her would be trivializing it almost. There are several much better locations that her name should be attached to. And in your testimony, written testimony, you have the head of Maui Economic Opportunity, where she worked, Debbie Kabibi, suggesting that her name be used for the Kula Ag Park and make it the Baisa Kula or Kula Baisa Agricultural Park. There are now 2 parks there, which she had an opportunity to work on. And I think that would be a fitting tribute. A second one is another letter in the filed paper document, which says that she was really a resident and spent most of her life, adult life, in Makawao. And there's a large field there, Makawao Park, below Eddie Tam Gym, could be renamed in her own community for her. It would be a Baisa Park with a Eddie Tam Gym located on the park grounds, which I think would be much more appropriate than Kula Park location. And when I worked hard to get the Kula Park built, the idea was that we really needed a place for the whole community. The school and the park went together as a package, really. That's how we justified it to the state legislature and to the county. And I believe it should be kept as a name, Kula Park, in perpetuity. Now, that's roughly 35 years since it opened. And everybody in Kula knows it. Everybody upcountry knows it as Kula Park, and they bring their children there to play, etc. Gladys had very little to do with Kula Park. She was on the council when some money was appropriated to put in some safety features for disabilities, but that was not a major contribution for that. But she did put in major contribution on the Kula Ag Park. She worked for 10 years as a member of that body that ran the Kula Ag Park, and that would be a very appropriate place to designate. I'll tell you, I think so much of Gladys. I'll make something that may sound outrageous. I think she's probably done more for this community as head of MEO, as a county councilwoman for 10 years, including being the chair of the council, including her work as director of the water department. I don't know anyone else in county government or community service who's done as much for our island community, county really, as Gladys has. And if I had a choice myself, I would name this building that I'm sitting in right now, the county building, after her, and call it the Baisa County Building. That's the level, I think, of her. So what I'm saying is nothing against Gladys. I think it's almost beneath her to name this school park in a community where she didn't live, where she didn't have really much attachment to, in her honor. And so I appreciate very much what Sherman said, her son said. They're very honored to have somebody even think of her honoring her mother. I think that she deserves even greater honor, and I think there are appropriate ways to do it. And I'd be glad to answer any questions on the background, how we got the money, what we did, what the park looks like. And I really appreciate you allowing me to go more than the normal 3 minutes that testifiers are allowed to testify, because I have a lot of background and I have all the documents on the whole history of the park and the details, both financial, building it, etc. And I was the founding member, one of the founding members of the Kula Community Association. And you'll notice there is no letter in the written documents there supporting naming the park for Gladys from the Kula Community Association. There is one from Pukalani, but I don't think that's the relevant one. Kula Association didn't send a letter in, and I do think Makawao would be honored to have a park named after her. I'll leave it at that. Thank you for listening to me.
Okay, thank you for your testimony to the commission. Is there any questions for the testifier? Seeing none. Oh, looks like we have one more testifier online raising hand.
Yes, that's true. We also have Councilmember Sugimura on the calling in from the 8047 number.
Okay, let's start with Tom. He was raising his hand for a while. I'm sorry, Councilmember Sugimura, if that's all right.
That's fine, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I went through the documents this morning and did not notice that my testimony the written testimony I had sent in was in your packet. Can you confirm whether you got my written testimony? Because I don't want to repeat it if you already got it.
Yeah.
Paul, can you confirm if that was sent out? Okay.
Is that?
I didn't see anything from Thomas Crowley.
Oh, that's disappointing. I did send it in a few days ago.
I'm sorry, we got it as an attachment.
Okay, great. I'm glad to hear that. Thank you. Okay, so that kind of changes what the testimony I'm going to give right now, because I don't want to just repeat the same thing that you already have in written form there. I'll start by saying I support naming the park after Gladys. I would support any kind of honor that you would give to Gladys, because as Dick Mayer very succinctly said, she's done more for the people of Maui and the county of Maui than anyone that I can think of. So whatever the decision that's done here, I hope that it's not the end of honoring Gladys Baisa. But I met Gladys 25 years ago when she took office as chair of the planning committee, and I was advocating for changes of our bed and breakfast laws. And as I testified, or as I worked with Gladys, I realized she listened. She understood people's problems, and she came up with pragmatic ways to address really big problems, oftentimes problems that the whole community didn't necessarily agree on. But she taught me something that was really valuable in my life, and that was getting engaged with the community, attending the meetings, as Dick was talking about, Kula Community Association meetings and Kihei Community Association meetings, and just being engaged and being able to work out the issues among people. And that's something that Gladys did just so well. And I want to relate one story, and that was when Gladys was coming home from a Kula Community Association meeting in 2012. It was dark, and she tripped in the field where her car was parked and broke her ankle. And I was very worried. Gladys was 72 years old at the time. I thought, oh my God, this might be the end of this dynamo who's been advocating for the community for so long. But Gladys didn't let it keep her down for a moment. She got on the MEO wheelchair buses and still attended those meetings, and she still continued to do her job as a council member. And that was just something incredible to me. And she continued to right up until her death. She's just someone that's remarkable. I do want to point out that naming parks after people and even council members is something that Maui County has a long-standing policy of doing. Richard Pablo Caldito Senior Park in Waihi was named after one of the county board of supervisors from 1956, and that was just the first. The Hannibal Tavares Community Center in Pukalani was, of course, named after former mayor. This park has a ball field that was named after Glenn Otani. So it's not unprecedented in any way, shape, or form for us to be naming these parks after people who have done remarkable things. So I stand in full support of naming this park as a community center, as a place where people get together after Gladys. But I also really appreciated Dick Mayer's points that there may be better opportunities out there to name something else after Gladys. So I would not let this thing drop. And you know, it's up to you guys to make a recommendation. I guess eventually it makes its way to council. But from my standpoint, I'm all in favor of honoring Gladys in this way. And thank you for the opportunity to share my mana'o.
Thank you, Tom. Is there any questions for the testifier from the commission? Seeing none, moving on to Councilmember Yukile calling in.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. The testifiers appreciate you sharing and spending the time to make your points. I want to especially thank the Baisa Ohana, who I did talk to them about this, and they spent some time, you know, privately trying to make a decision, and I appreciate, you know, your support of this decision. We did get letters of support, as the members would have in your packets, which was with Director Pat McCall. We also had Donna Clayton with Pukalani Community Association, Deanne Davis, Barbara Purdy, Amanda Martin, who worked for Gladys, and as well as we did receive Tom Crowley's. And for the members' information, I did go to the Kula Community Association meeting, and they made a motion to support this. And who surfaced to do that letter is Doug Sheehan, of which you have a copy of his email or his letter. And that was what they told me represented the Kula Community Association's support. And I did speak to last week, I did speak to their current president, and she said that I guess this is their letter of support for this renaming. And I want to emphasize that this is a person who's touched many of our lives. And if you read the support letters, you will see that Gladys spent 50 years serving Maui County and did a great job with MEO, and then transferred over and ran for public office, served for 10 years, and then worked for Department of Water Supply, and was in that department also. She's had quite a history. She has a great heart. I did a lot of projects with her when I was at the council, or before I got to the council, and we created community events for the people or underserved people that she represented. I believe that the park, which is used by the community, is a great place to honor somebody like Gladys Baisa. And I stand by the thought that went into renaming the park after her, as it was a community that she represented, which is upcountry. And there are many families and children that she served through her work with MEO, and then when she was at the Maui County Council, that it is a perfect fit for the heart and soul of this wonderful person. And I also know that she was a trailblazer for women and for many of the underserved that she served when she was at MEO and at the Maui County Council. So members of the Public Works Commission, it was described as a process. This is a nomination for the naming of the Kula Park to Gladys Baisa, Koho Baisa Park. And I hope you will consider this and move this forward. after this, it will come before the Maui County Council for the final vote to do this. And I hope that the council members will then also support your recommendation to name this park after this wonderful woman. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any clarifying questions? Jeremy, yes.
Aloha, Councilmember Sugimura.
Hi, Jeremy.
This is Jerry.
Hi, Jeremy.
So I just I needed on clarification when the Baisa Ohana, sorry, I forgot his name, but Gladys's son.
Sherman. Sherman.
Said you had approached the Ohana about this. Kind of what was the time frame of when you approached the Ohana about thinking of naming something after Gladys?
Last year.
Last year, like late last year, early last year, like January, the beginning, middle, end. What part of last year was they approached when you had this idea?
Well, I think it was like towards the ending part of the year. I don't know. I don't know the exact month, but it is something that I did approach the family on.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Okay.
Aloha kako. I see a letter of support from Pukalani Community Association. I was wondering if there is a Kula Community Association.
Yes. And the Kula Community Association, what they did was when I went to their board meeting and I asked if they would do this, they voted as a board to say that they do support this and came up with their vote of yes. And when I called them to ask them if they supported their letter, hello. They said it was Doug Sheehan who wrote the letter on behalf of the Kula Community Association.
Okay, and so I do not see, and correct me if I'm wrong, Chair, a letter from Sheehan, Doug Sheehan?
Doug Sheehan.
There was one email sent out 9:57 from Paul that had that testimony in support.
Mahalo.
No problem. Okay, any other Laureen?
Was there any consideration initially to consider the Kula Ag Park instead of the Kula Park?
Are you asking my opinion? No.
Yes.
No. So the Kula Ag Park I'm a member of the Kula Ag Park Committee. This is going to be my 10th year. And I do not know if Gladys Baisa served in that committee before me as a council member. I do not know. But no consideration was given to her being, her name being given to the Kula Ag Park is your question.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the testifier? Seeing none, are there any other testifiers that have joined in? No? Okay. I can open the floor to the discussion for the commission. If there's any comments to add at this time or any other clarifying questions for either process of how this works, anything like that. Otherwise, I will ask for a motion.
So are we open for discussion or are we making a motion? What would you like to do, Chair?
I can, if there's discussion, if you want to start it, that's fine with me. Otherwise, we have to move along to the actions for it. So,
my only comment that I wanted to share with the committee and with the testifiers is that, like Mr. Pat Borge said, Gladys is an amazing woman. I've had the chance to interact with her from the community standpoint when she was on the council. There's no denying that she did a lot. However, it is very close to the election season. It very much muddies the water, in my opinion, of the timing of this. And me personally, I would like to state that I would like to put a pause until the election cycle is done, and then go from there. I mean, I really don't know what that would do, but it just seems very coincidental with the timing of this and the election season. I just wanted to put that comment out there. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Jeremy. I do have a question. Oh, Lokelani, you can go first.
No, I'll hear your question first.
Oh, I'm kind of curious from the I guess the department. Is there a criteria for naming things after people in terms of parks? So like we have, a couple mayors that have community centers and things like that. But is there a laid out criteria for naming parks or things like that after individuals from the community?
So it is part of the application process. So yeah, there is some criteria, and it's more of a, for lack of a better term, making an argument in one way or another. Making a recommendation based upon, the person's impact on the community, the greater community. So it's
Chair?
I mean, it's relatively, go ahead.
Yes.
I could read it for you if you like. It's in the code. It talks about when you can rename, and it has to kind of be addressed in the application. Would you like me to read it?
Yeah, I think that'd be helpful for us.
Okay, it looks like this is 2.98.040 criteria for naming streets, parks, and facilities. And it says a person's name or an organization's name may be used in connection with the park or facility where at least one of the following criteria is satisfied. A, the person or organization has a significant association with the park or facility. B, the person or organization has contributed significantly to programs in the region where the park or facility is located. And C, the person or organization has achieved significant recognition on the county, state, national, or international level for contributions to the region or to the park or facility itself. And that's, again, you would make a recommendation to the council, and then the council would have to pass a name change by ordinance. You have 60 days to make your recommendation. So it says within 60 days after a request first appears on the commission's agenda for review, the commission and or Cultural Resources Commission shall make its recommendation to the council regarding the proposal. So that's I think the relevant criteria you have.
Thank you. I'm curious, has the Cultural Resource Commission provided a recommendation, or do we go first?
If I'm not mistaken, I think it's in parallel. So I'm not 100% sure if they've met since the application had been submitted, but it's not necessarily sequential.
Got it. Thank you. Lokelani.
Mahalo. So in scrolling through the email that we got this morning, I do see a note from, or an email from Doug Sheehan, but I see it, for me, it looks like a personal recommendation. It doesn't say on behalf of the Kula community, association, whatever law. It's as a personal recommendation. So I think if Kula Association had a recommendation to give, it should have been on behalf of the association. This looks like a personal rec from one person. Mahalo.
Thank you. Anything else from the commission on this topic? Okay, seeing none, I will ask for either a motion. So it sounds like we have 60 days. We could push it. I don't know how much that would help. Or a recommendation of approval or denial.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yes, Matt.
Just on procedure, if we're recommending whether we're recommending whether they accept or not, whether we want the council to accept or not. That's basically our recommendation.
So we would recommend either, seeing it, approval of this name change, and then they would vote on it themselves.
Okay.
Or
Okay,
we'd
and
say
what,
recommend no, and they would still vote on it themselves.
And are we a majority? What does it take to pass, and what does it take to recommend or to not recommend?
I think, Mr. Hopper, can you weigh in on that? What does it take to pass?
You would need 5 votes either way to make a pass on a recommendation of any kind. 5 votes.
6 members?
Yeah, we have 6 here today,
it's-
so
It's based on the members to which you're entitled overall, which would be 9, I believe. And double check that, but you have to have a majority to which you're entitled, whether or not, regardless of how many attend the actual meeting.
But
So
you
we
would
still-
have enough.
I guess, engineering standpoint. What's that?
You would have enough members to vote.
we would still need 5
But we-
yeses today.
Yes, you'd still need 5. So
Okay.
one could sort of disagree with the larger group, but not more than that.
Okay.
Okay, so just to clarify, so the Public Works Commission shall review any proposed naming or renaming and make its recommendations to the Maui County Council. The council may adopt, modify, or reject the commission's recommendations. The request to rename a park facility shall be reviewed by the Public Works Commission and the Cultural Resources Commission. So that's the process.
Oh, and then we're supposed to weigh in from a public work standpoint, right? That's
Correct.
our stance, correct?
Yep.
Okay. So then I would say from a public work standpoint, I personally would say that I think Gladys sounds like a great Gladys. I don't know her name is, and I've never met her. I don't really matter. She sounds like a great person. But from a public work standpoint, it's just putting a cost on changing the park name on the taxpayer, and that money could go to other public works things that could benefit more people in the community. So I would lean towards, I would say, I would not recommend, but I would also think that it should go to the council and they can actually make a decision, because those are the people that were voted into this position to make this call. So I don't want to vote no and it gets shot down, because I still want them to make a decision. But I wouldn't mind a recommendation saying, hey, I think that from our standpoint, it's gonna cost taxpayer money, and it'll cause some confusion when names change and stuff like that. It always causes confusion from an engineering standpoint. So that's kind of my stance. I don't want to say no if it's going to stop it from going, because I don't want to be the one that makes that call. Maybe you guys can advise me how to vote in that regard.
No, I think you have the right to vote how you want, man.
Okay. I don't want to mess with.
I think that's why we have this commission, is so that we have varying opinions and things do get voted on, and that's democracy, how we move forward, right?
All right, well, and I'm
Yeah,
feeling
so,
guilty for saying no to these people's dreams, but it just seems to me like could be a better way for them to honor this great lady that doesn't require taxpayer money.
And that's fair. Okay. Anything else from the commission? Otherwise, I'll ask again for a motion.
Can I make a motion to defer to a later date?
I'm hearing a motion to defer. Anything else? I need a second on that.
I'll second that.
Okay, second from Lokelani. All in favor on the motion to defer until the next meeting? Yes, Mr. Hopper.
Chair, just to clarify, when you defer, you would want to specify what additional information you would want as part of the request. And in addition to that, I would note that so the next meeting, I'm not sure where you are at the 60-day time frame, but if you don't make a recommendation, I think council can most likely just move forward without a recommendation. So just need to advise the commission that I don't think you'd have the right to indefinitely postpone this, forever. You could recommend to the council that they don't take any action until after the election. That's something you could recommend. But I just want to note for the commissioners that it doesn't look like there's an unlimited right to defer indefinitely.
On that note, can we find out what point we're at in the 60 days?
I will withdraw my 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 deferment, my motion to defer.
Okay, we're withdrawing motion to defer.
Yeah, and I take back my second.
Okay. Okay, so would you like to do a new motion to hold off until the end of the election? Or is that something that we want to do?
I don't know if we have enough time for that. 60 days from like even today is the end of October, and I think the election's in November. So
Right, we wouldn't be able to push it that long, right?
yeah,
Is that right, Mr. Hopper? We couldn't delay until after the election?
I mean, you have 60 days. The council can kind of do whatever it wants. If you want to recommend to council, they don't do anything until after the election. That's where you can make that recommendation. They'd have to pass an ordinance, and they would always be able to just say no to passing an ordinance if that's something they didn't want to do. But yeah, it looks like from the code section, they need you to make a recommendation in 60 days. It doesn't specify a consequence if you don't, but I think it would be reasonable to read into that if you don't, the council can take action without your recommendation, because otherwise you could just never make a recommendation and perpetually, hold it forever. So I think, if it's the will of the commission that you don't think the council should take action until after the election, you could make that recommendation. But I don't think you could necessarily defer past the 60 days indefinitely and, prevent the council from passing the ordinance because you hadn't made a recommendation yet. That's something how I do the code.
Okay, thank you. It looks like the application was signed on August 7th. So we have until October 7th. So this is, we'd have one more meeting before. But like he said, I guess they could take this up earlier at the council. To move on, we'll need a motion on action to either to do something here. Someone can be brave.
Yeah, I brave. I
Yeah.
move that we not recommend. I move
Okay,
that we not
there's
recommend.
motion to deny changing the name. Can I get a second on that?
I'll second it.
Second from Matt. Okay, we can take a vote. We want to do it, I guess, individualized, or do we want to take it all in favor of this motion? Okay, individualize. We'll go around the list. Laureen,
No.
no to the motion, or
Oh, yes to the motion, which is a
okay.
no.
Okay, thank you. Matt, you second.
Just to
so-
clarify, this is to recommend to the council that they not make the name change. That's the
Correct.
recommendation.
That is
Okay, just want
yes.
to clarify.
So a vote now for yes is to say no to the record. Just to be clear.
Oh,
Okay.
yes, we
Yes.
say no.
Voting Matt says yes to say no. Okay, Jeremy.
Yes.
Okay, Lokelani.
Yep, yes.
Yes. Brylan.
I actually vote no. I'm going with my gut because I haven't lived in Maui County for a very long time, or like a long time. I wasn't born and raised here, but I have heard of Gladys Baisa, and I believe that she should be honored in at least some way. I'm not sure how difficult it would be to pursue other avenues, but so I would vote no, as in to say yes.
Okay, and I am gonna vote yes on the motion to say no as well. So the motion will pass with 5 votes, or the yes motion. Okay. Thank you all for that. Getting through that, I appreciate it. Moving on to the next order of business. County of Maui training for the commission members. Paul, do you have something there, Mr. Hopper?
I think both Paul and myself had a training. I'm not sure if Paul wanted to go first himself or if he'd want me to go first. I think I'm okay either way.
Yeah, I don't mind going first.
Okay.
Yeah, you guys. Yeah, item 3.3 is complete.
Thank you for calling out deal.
Take care. Good to see you. Yeah. Right. Thanks, guys.
I hope you make a motion.
Yeah.
Oh, I want to get some water.
Oh, Paul, you were setting it up, right?
I'm gonna bring it up right here. So.
Okay, thanks. I'll get mine ready for the next one. We do technically have to ask for public testimony on the training before we start, so maybe you could do that.
Okay. Do we have any public testimony on the training? Seeing none. Okay. Please continue, Paul.
Okay, just give me 1 second. I apologize. It's deep in here. Okay, I'm going to try to share my screen. Y'all can see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, so I know we have quite a few new members, and I don't think we've ever gone through this in my little over 2 years working with you guys. But I just want to give you a quick overview of kind of what the Public Works Commission's role is, some of the dynamics of the Sunshine Law and our public meeting structure, and then I think Mike is going to go through a little bit of the ethics and parliamentary procedure parts of things. So our role and purpose is advisory to both the mayor, council, and the director of public works. And our areas of focus are traffic safety, naming of facilities, streets, and parks, review and update of subdivision standards, engineering design standards, and outdoor lighting. So as Mike Hopper mentioned, we have technically 11 members, 9 members plus 2 alternates. They are appointed, you've all been appointed and confirmed by mayor and council. Some of you are engineers. Loke is our language expert. And then we have 2 seats for Lanai and Molokai. Lanai is currently vacant. And the reason we kind of get a broad range of people is to ensure technical, cultural, and geographic balance to represent all of Maui Nui. So some of you may or may not be, let me see if I can just a little bit smaller. There we go. So parliamentary procedures. So standard meeting flow, as you guys have seen, is basically we start with the call to order, starting the meeting, do a roll call, typically review minutes from the last meeting, request public testimony, go through the agenda items one by one with recommendations for motions, voting, and discussion, and then we close out for that meeting. Motions typically are a move motion, which is to present something to the group. Second, which is to confirm a primary motion. There's also discussion and voting. So we do require quorum because we are a public meeting, and that based upon the 11 members, we need at least 5. And if there are any reasons why people need to abstain themselves from potentially conflict of interest, or maybe personal reasons, whether it be schedule or project based. Those are also recorded, and Noah's role and Jeremy's role in Noah's absence is to manage order and fairness across the discussion. So key things to keep in mind: be prepared and be on time, listen and respect each other's, try to avoid off-agenda discussion items, open up if you have any concerns for conflict, focusing on advising council or the mayor or the department, and really our role is to maintain integrity and create a public process for these things to come forward, not only to the department, but also county council and the mayor's office. That's all I had. Any questions from the group? I will make a statement that this is probably the most testimony we've had on a item before. Yeah. Okay. No, Lorraine, Matt, right? So it's a little bit of a learning experience for us all. So hopefully that was some good conversation, great questions to ask. And yeah, it was learning for me too. So I appreciate that.
I actually do have a question.
Go for it.
How do we go about as commission members if we wanted to add something to the agenda?
So that's usually done at the end of the meeting, where there will be, if you look at the previous meeting minutes and actually the agenda, it does have, like, if there's any recommendations for other discussion topics. I know we focus more on like street naming and park naming and stuff, but there is the reason we do have engineers as well as, you know, people in the construction world is that we do have a responsibleness for the subdivision code, engineering standards, that sort of stuff. So yeah, just to help do a little reset on what our role is, and don't want to necessarily waste anybody's time, but there are things outside of just street and facility naming that, you know, the department would like, you know, maybe a little bit more engagement on, and we can help to facilitate that. So. If no other questions, I'll hand over to Mr. Hopper.
Okay, I will try to share my screen here, and apologize for my voice, a little bit scratchy, but I want to see, check and see, can you guys see what's on my screen right now?
You can, Mike.
Okay, so I'm going to cover a couple of topics. These are pretty universal. They apply to all board and commission members in the county. The first thing I want to talk about is the state's open meeting law. It's Hawaii Revised Statutes, Chapter 92, and it focuses on open meetings. It's also called the State Sunshine Law. Oops, it's not going to pull it up. Here it is. So the general idea behind the Sunshine Law is that they want to make sure that the governmental process of decision making is open up to the public, and for the most part, everything you do at the Public Works Commission is going to have to be done in public. So this applies to the meetings, all the documents that you review, and it requires things like that the notice of the meetings be publicly available, and that people be allowed to attend your meetings and be able to have essentially access to you in your decision making. What specifically is required? Some of this you probably have already know or have figured out. But every meeting of the board is open to the public, either in person or interactive conference technology that's essentially online. Anyone who's interested has the opportunity to submit testimony on all agenda items, and also to submit written testimony and to provide oral testimony on those items. You can place reasonable time limits on that testimony. for example, most boards and commissions have a 3-minute time limit on each testifier. I have seen also boards have that time shortened to 2 minutes if there's a lengthy agenda item with lots of people in order to get through the item. And testimony can't be limited only to the start of the meeting. You have to take testimony when each agenda item comes up. Meetings by interactive conference technology is allowed, but you need to have an audio and visual interaction between the board members. Normally, absent the current exception, you don't have to allow. Well, I don't want to get into the history of the Sunshine Law, but right now, in the past, members used to have to allow the public to attend where they were physically. During COVID, however, that was changed to allow members to participate remotely, even in non-public locations. That's why at the beginning of the meetings, you have to announce where you are and if anyone's with you. But you can participate in a meeting remotely, as most of you are doing, actually, as all of you are doing right now. So this is very important because the Sunshine Law can affect what you can talk about outside of meetings. So what can you discuss outside of a meeting? No more than 2 members can discuss board business outside of a meeting. 2 members can discuss board business outside of a meeting, as long as there's no commitment to vote is made or sought. And so 2 of you can potentially discuss board business. More than 2 of you cannot get together and discuss board business. And then once 2 people discuss board business, those people cannot discuss that same board business with another member at all. My best recommendation to you is just don't discuss board business with other board and commission members outside of a meeting. It's just a good tip not to do that. And what I just said is the first bullet point there. No serial communications we already dealt with. That does include by a communication by other means, texting, social media posting, things like that. That can be considered discussion of board business. So avoid doing that. If you're at a social gathering, you as members can talk to each other about stuff. Just don't talk about Public Works Commission board business. You have other things to talk about. Yeah, you can meet socially and have meals and things like that, but you can't discuss board business. And then one exception to the Sunshine Law is that there is a potential to form what's called a temporary investigative group. That's called a TIG. That allows 2 or more members, but less than a quorum, so less than 5, to investigate an item. The scope of that investigation has to be set forth at the beginning, as well as the members that are going to be participating. The findings and recommendations of that small group have to be presented to the full board at another meeting, and then the board can't take any action, or the commission can't take any action until the 3rd meeting after that. So essentially what this allows you to do is if you want to get a small group of members together, you could have less than 5 members get together and really delve into a topic. I've seen this done with rule making, like if you wanted to amend your rules or something like that. I've seen boards and commissions do that. However, it can be kind of complicated. You have to have one meeting to announce what the subject is and who the members are. And then you can't talk about that subject again until that group reports back. And then all you can do at the meeting they report back is discuss the business. Not even discuss. Have the presentation and have the and be allowed to ask questions. And then you have to wait till a 3rd meeting in order to actually take action on the proposal. So it can be lengthy, but that can be a useful thing if the board's going to want to really delve in detail on a specific topic. Attendance at informational meetings. So the Sunshine Law actually restricts whether you can go to informational meetings that involve board business. So this would apply to like running the community association meetings or other things like that if they're discussing board business. If you see another member show up, that's okay, but up to 4 members can attend such meetings, and then they have to report back to the Public Works Commission and discuss and give a report on what was discussed at that meeting. More than 4 cannot do that. That's sort of considered a meeting. So if more than 4 of you are together in a room discussing or learning about board business, that can be considered a meeting. So you want to avoid that. That includes meetings of another entity or board or commission, legislative hearings, conventions, seminars, and community meetings. So if you're at those meetings and you have less than a quorum, you can participate in discussions, and no commitments to vote on the matter at the Public Works Commission can be sought or made. And then, like I said, at the next meeting, we have to report what was discussed there. Again, no more than 4 members. What constitutes board business? This term we've been saying. Well, board business is defined as specific matters over which a board has supervision, control, jurisdiction, or advisory power that are actually pending before the board or that can be reasonably anticipated to arise before the board in the foreseeable future. This favors a narrow interpretation of what board business is. So again, you can discuss things with other members as long as it's not board business. So they're going to define board business as something that the Public Works Commission has jurisdiction over. So 5 of you can't get together and discuss an upcoming street naming application or something like that, or an upcoming a park naming application outside of a meeting. The idea is the law requires you to do that in public at a duly noticed meeting, so the public knows the basis of your decision and how your decision making is made. They don't want, decisions to be made without anybody knowing why the decision was made. There are exceptions that include where you can have a closed meeting or executive session. This requires 2/3 of an affirmative vote of the members present at the meeting, and the purpose has to be announced. So some examples are to consider discipline of an officer or employee where privacy is involved, or to consult with your attorney on questions of your powers, duties, liabilities, and immunities. That's usually the most common purpose of an executive session. The meetings have to be noticed. So this is the agenda that's posted for each meeting. It has to be in writing, has to be made available to the public. It must list all of the items that are to be discussed, the date, time, and place of the meeting, and filed in the county clerk's office. This is also placed on the county calendar on its website. And so that's the idea that the public needs to know what you're just going to discuss at the meeting. And in your agenda, sometimes you may want to discuss something that's outside of an agenda. You can't really do that at a meeting. You would need to do that at a subsequent meeting generally. So you could ask that it be placed on a future agenda. But if an item's not on the agenda, you generally can't discuss it at the meeting. For violations of the Sunshine Law, a decision of a board or commission can be voided. That means basically overturned. So if someone finds that you violated the Sunshine Law, you may have to redo that meeting and redo that decision. An injunction can be issued. That's a court order preventing the action taken at the meeting from becoming legal. A member can be found guilty of a misdemeanor if there is a intentional violation of the Sunshine Law. And a member could be removed from the board, commission, or committee. So there are various resources here. Chapter 92 is the Sunshine Law, and there's the Office of Information Practices that administers the Sunshine Law at a state level. They're a state agency that assists in administering the Sunshine Law, and they can be called for questions if there's some specific questions. Now, this is not something that you should be expected to It's not something you should be expected to memorize, obviously. That's why you have legal counsel at these meetings. But I think the best advice at this point is don't discuss board business outside of meetings. It's probably the best way to sort of stay in compliance with the Sunshine Law because, if you don't do that, I think you're generally going to be okay. And if you save discussion, obviously you can read your materials before the meeting, think about them, read the applications, read the testimony. But I would advise against discussing those items outside of a meeting. Now, you can generally discuss with non-members. I would clarify that. You don't have to, but if a non-member wants to discuss something, the general rule is that you can discuss that with them. The only exception is if you're dealing with a contested case, which would be an application where you have final decision-making power over. I'm trying to think of something the Public Works Commission would have with that, and nothing comes to mind. So I think generally you can discuss board business with non-board members outside of the meeting. Again, you don't have to, and I think it's perfectly fine for you to tell a member of the public, you know what, I can't really discuss that with you. I'm going to be voting on that next week, but submit testimony And, we can hear from you at the meeting. That might be, a better way to do it. But that's what I have for you right now for the sunshine law. And I'm not sure if you have any questions. Do you have any questions? No? Okay. If not, I can move on to the ethics portion of the presentation. Okay. The code of ethics applies to all county employees, and that includes board and commission members. And the code of ethics is found in Article 10 of the code of the charter. So, which does the Article 10 of the charter prohibit? It prohibits accepting gifts or money, or engaging in any business transaction or activity, or have a financial interest that is incompatible with the proper discharge of the commissioner's duties, or that may impair a commissioner's independence of judgment in the performance of an official duty. Sorry. It also prohibits failing to disclose a financial interest or vote on a matter affected by such an interest. So, with respect to conflicts of interest, whenever a conflict is raised by anyone regarding a member, committee is sort of a universal word, but it also deals with Public Works Commission. The affected member should promptly make a full disclosure of the circumstances to the group. If the commission member has a financial interest in any matter that may be affected by an action, that member is disqualified from participating and voting in all actions related to such an action. So the basic requirements is you need to disclose any conflict or potential conflict on the record. These are financial interests. So if your employer is applying for something at the Public Works Commission, generally you could not vote on that item. An employer-employee relationship is a financial interest that must be disclosed. So do so prior to any committee discussion. If a parent or dependent child has a financial interest, that should also be disclosed. And a spouse is considered having an imputed financial interest. So if your spouse is part of an application before you, that's something you need to disclose and consider refusal. So if there's any doubt, you should decide whether to proceed or not. You can always abstain from voting if there's a potential conflict. You could also either request deferral, or the better thing to do would be when you see the item or you have any idea of the item coming up, you can ask for an advisory opinion from the Board of Ethics. There's a county board called the Board of Ethics, which you're probably familiar with, that gives opinions on potential conflicts. And if you obtain an opinion and act in accordance with that opinion, you cannot be held liable for violating the county charter. So my advice in a lot of these cases is, I can maybe give general advice, but if you've got a concern about a potential financial conflict, I would advise, and you're not going to recuse yourself, I would generally advise getting a Board of Ethics opinion, because they can look at the specifics of your request, evaluate the request, and give a written opinion to you and give you that guidance. It's better to be before the Board of Ethics asking for an opinion than to have a complaint against you for voting on something that, again, obviously a complaint is not an indication that you did anything wrong necessarily, but if you can be proactive in those cases, that can be helpful. And then a decision could be challenged and penalties issued if someone acts in violation of the Code of Ethics. A complaint could be filed by someone who believes the decision the commissioner made was affected by the member's financial relationship. And the failure to follow the charter's ethics requirements, a member could be fined or removed from the Public Works Commission. And that's all I have for that portion of the presentation. I don't know if you have any questions, but I think I'm all done.
All right, thank you. Any comments from the commission? Seeing none. Back to the agenda. Okay, so next meeting date is Wednesday, September 30th at 1:30 p.m. If there's not any additions to the agenda, we'll adjourn the meeting at 2:50. Thank you all for your time today.